Hi everybody, this video is all about anti-skating. How can you set your anti-skating to the perfect setting? In this video you will see how you can measure anti-skating, and on this Vega P3 I want to demonstrate how to get it at exactly the right setting. But first, why do we need anti-skating? Why is there anti-skating? Well, there's only one answer to this question, and it's friction. Because there's friction between the groove and the stylus, the groove is pulling onto the stylus and wants to move it. And as it is pulling on it, it moves the stylus also to the inside of the record. If you want to compensate for this, you need a force that is pulling the stylus to the outer groove. And that is exactly what the anti-skating is doing. As the groove is pulling it to the inner side, the anti-skating is pulling it to the outer side, and you want to have those in equal forces so the stylus stays in the middle. Can you change the friction? Can you change the way the groove is pulling on the stylus? Yes, of course. If you increase the tracking force, you increase the friction of the stylus into the groove, and as the friction is increasing, also the groove is pulling harder onto the stylus, and you need a higher anti-skating. The same is true if you have loud music. If there's a high modulation, then also the stylus has to move left and right, up and down, and encounters much more friction, and you need a higher anti-skating. If you have a dirty record, of course, if you have a dirty record, there's lots of stuff in the groove, and this is also causing a higher friction. So if you're lazy and you don't want to clean your records, just turn up the dial of your anti-skating and you're set. Well, that's not true, of course. So how can you set the correct anti-skating? What I have done in the past, I have always used a test record like this one. And I don't know if it's true for all test records, but this test record has different bands where you can set your anti-skating, and you can be more accurately as you go along to the different steps. And the last step is the loudest, and you have to try to get it exactly right at that track. But that's part of the problem. As the music is louder, the groove will pull harder onto the stylus, and you need a higher setting of your anti-skating. So usually you end up with a too high value. Some people try to use a CD or use the dead wax of a record. You can use the dead wax and set your needle here. But this is actually the part where there is the lowest friction. You can work around this, but then you need experience. And maybe you're asking yourself, why not just follow the manual? If you have a turntable, there is a manual included, and when you look it up how to set the anti-skating, it will say once you have set your tracking force, for example at 2 grams, put the dial of the anti-skating exactly at 2 and you're done. Well, I will try to show you that you're not done. That's not the perfect setting. So what is the perfect setting? What is the perfect setting of the anti-skating so you have it exactly at the right force? Well, if you look up the research done in the late 60s and beginning of the 70s, they came to the conclusion that the best setting for your anti-skating is at 10% of the tracking force. If your anti-skating is 10% of the tracking force, you have exactly the right value. And this 10% is for a 9-inch arm with a conical stylus. If you have an elliptical stylus has a little bit more friction into the groove, then you need, for example, 11%. If you have a longer arm, it's not 9-inch but 12-inch, for example, you need something like 7 or 8% of the tracking force. So now that we know we need 10% of the tracking force, how do we set it? Can you measure this? Yes. Wally Malowitz designed this device, and it's brilliant in its simplicity. With this device you can actually measure the tracking force. Unfortunately, Wally passed away not so long ago. I don't know if you can buy still. He called it the Wally Skater. I made one myself, and you just need some simple rods. I used some aluminium. The total building cost is less than $10, so it's not that difficult. And how it works is that the difference between the top bar and the bottom bar is 10-inch. So if you want to have 10% force in the side direction, you need to have something moving it 1 inch. So it's 10-inch, 1 inch, that's exactly 10%. That's also how it works. if you have the pump bob exactly at a certain position, you can mark your rod at a certain position, and then you need something that is moving it 1 inch to the side. So I'll try to demonstrate it on this turntable. You remove the mat as you want to have the arm in exactly the right position. I will move it a little bit closer to you so you can see it better. Now when you're doing it, it's a little bit fiddly, and you need to be careful that you don't ruin your stylus. On this cartridge I already ruined it. Different story, different video, but be careful. I have to move it a little bit so you can see it better. So I use two markings. I had the marking for the outer groove and for the inner groove, but I think if you just do it in the middle, you're also fine. So I'll put the pump blob exactly at my marking, and now you can play around with your anti-skating. You can lower it or you can increase it, and you see that it is moving according to the amount of anti-skating I put on it. The fun thing on a Rega is when you put it on 0, it's not actually 0. There is still a little bit of tracking force working on the anti-skating, and that's because we are using magnets to put the anti-skating force onto the arm. But it's actually fun to see. Now, what happens when you exactly follow the manual? Let's put it, at the moment the tracking force is set at 2, and I will put the dial also on 2. A little bit higher. Yep, we're now exactly at 2. And as you can see, the tracking force is actually a little bit too high, or the anti-skating, because if you go from the pump block 1 inch, you are exactly at this setting. That's 1 inch, and it is now close to 2 inch. So it's 20% of the tracking force is on the anti-skating. If I lowered it and try to get the exact right value, a little bit lower. This is exactly 1 inch. And I now look at the dial, I see that it is at 1.5. That is something that I saw in general. And why is it important that you have it exactly at the right position? Why? Doesn't matter it's a little bit off or not. I will try to demonstrate that with my trusty gatefold. People who have not seen my videos, I usually use a gatefold to simulate the groove. Let me first put this away so I have a little bit more room without destroying everything. So the gatefold is the groove, and I usually simulate the stylus with a balloon. And if you have the perfect setting of your anti-skating, the forces on the left wall and on the right wall for the cartridge or the stylus are exactly equal, and that's what you're looking for. For example, if you have no anti-skating and compare it to the perfect setting, then your tracking is increased by 25%. So you have no anti-skating and you go to the perfect setting, your tracking is increased by 25%. Also, if you have exactly the right forces on the left and the right side, the tracking is the best, but also your distortion is minimal. You're getting the best out of your stylus. If the forces are not equal and you're pushing, for example, more on the left side or on the right side, the left side will have mistracking, and that will also cause final wear, and your stylus will wear. And as soon as your stylus is wearing, that will also make it give more distortion. So does this mean you need to build one Wally skater yourself? Do you need to build this device to get it exactly at the right value? Well, I think, let's make it an experiment. I don't think you need to build it. What I have seen when I built it, and I tried it on my own turntables, and I went to friends and my parents and I tried it out, what turns out, in general, the anti-skating is usually set too high, and it's always around 25%. So I want to do this experiment. Have you set your anti-skating with a test record? Or have you set it by manual so that you put the tracking force exactly at the dial of the tracking force? Go lower. Lower it by 25%. If you have now set it at 2, set it at 1.5. If you have it at 1.5, lower it even to 1. Go 30% lower. I think your tracking will be better, but leave a comment below in the comment section and let me know, did you get better results by lowering your anti-skating from what you have now? Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.